and our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Lena Messina. I'm the Mayor of Darebin City Council and the chairperson of tonight's special council meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you all. This is a special council meeting held to consider the CEO Employment Matters Committee Charter and a confidential contractual matter. These will be the only items of business to be considered at this special council meeting. I declare this meeting open at 6:28 p.m. My sincerest apologies for the delay to you all. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but now we are ready to go. Item number 1 is welcome. Darebin City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waters we now call Darebin, and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Council pays respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in Darebin. I acknowledge that I'm hosting or recording or facilitating this meeting from the lands of the traditional owners of Wurundjeri Wurrung, but I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you will be viewing this meeting from today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in the meeting. At Darebin, we acknowledge the leadership of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and the right to self-determination in the spirit of mutual understanding and respect. The health and safety and wellbeing of our community has and will always be paramount consideration of Council. Council continues to be guided by the government directives and wants to be able to do the right thing for the health of our community during the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting has been held virtually in line with the current health restrictions. Should technical problems occur, be encountered by the council, and the meeting may be adjourned until these are resolved with a maximum of 30 minutes. And if we cannot resolve the problem, we will reschedule the meeting, and in such circumstances, an advice message will be shown on your screen. This meeting is being live streamed by the link on the council website, so the public will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting. This meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on council website as soon as practical after the meeting. There are a few housekeeping rules and matters and technical tips for councils that I need to pass on. Please leave your video on and mute your sound unless you wish to speak. Councillor Greco, Councillor Rennie, can I ask you to mute your sound, please? Thank you. If you wish to electronically raise your hand, hover the participants button in the main video window and then press the small hand symbol in the right-hand corner, bottom corner. Please use this if you wish to ask a question or leave the meeting, so I'm aware of this. You can also raise your actual hand to get my attention. Note that there's no chat facility available during the meeting for councillors or general viewers. Item number 1 is membership. Before we commence, I'd like to introduce the councillors and senior staff who are with us this evening and to confirm councillors that I can see and hear you. First of all, welcome to the meeting, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Greco, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Tom Hannon. Councillor Suzanne Newton. Councillor Emmy Dimitriadis. Councillor Trent McCarthy. Councillor Tim Lawrence. Councillor Julie Williams. This evening, I note that we have Jodie Watson, the General Manager of Governance and Engagement. Stephen Mann, Coordinator of Council Business. And I just have to confirm, is C. Wilkinson, the CEO, there this evening?
No, Mayor, it's just myself.
No. Okay, noted. I didn't think she was, but it was put down. Thank you. Let's get underway. Item number 2, apologies. Note that there are no apologies. Item number 3, disclosures of conflict of interest. Councillors and officers, are there any disclosures?
No.
No. Okay, councillors, as there's been no conflicts of interest, I now move into the confirmation of the minutes of the last council meeting.
Excuse me, Mayor, there's no confirmation.
There's no confirmation. No, there's not. No, there's not. I just noticed that was not. And the first item we have to consider this evening is item number 4.1, the CEO Employment Matters Committee. Councillors, this matter is brought before us tonight by Jodie Watson, the General Manager of Governance and Engagement, who provides secretariat support to the CEO Employment Matters Committee. The recommendation before Council is based on the direction of the CEO Employment Matters Committee, which comprises of all 9 councillors of the City of Darebin. Jodie Watson, General Manager, Government and Engagement, will introduce the report. Over to you, Jodie.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Mayor, just a brief outline of the report. The report provides a review of the CEO Employment Matters Committee Charter. The current charter was established in 2017. It's been reviewed to reflect both the changing composition with the establishment of the new committee with the new council, as well as alignment to a new policy template and the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the officers, councillors regarding this item, noting that the discussions of the committee are confidential in nature and that all councillors have attended the recent meetings of the committee? Do we have any questions? Councillor Hannon.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, can I ask Jodie, our staff representative, could you please describe what changes are being proposed to the existing charter for this committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Mayor, the key changes made to the policy, one, as I mentioned, is the change to the new policy template, which is more about cosmetic than actual change. The second change is the change to the composition of the committee. So in the current charter and the previous committee, the composition was 4 councillors and an independent chair. When Council established the committee late last year, the composition of the committee is now 9 councillors and the independent chair. So that required a change in terms of the quorum requirements of the committee. That's a change made in the third point in composition on page 1. There were 2 further changes that were made by the committee, recommended to Council. One was around changing the quorum to be explicit that the quorum required the independent chair to be present. That's made in the second bullet point under the composition section on page 1. The second change was to include the term of the committee to reflect the alignment to the council term and to state the specific timing of the review, and that's made under the purpose on page 1 of the policy. They are the only changes made.
Thank you. Thank you, Jodie. Are there any further questions? Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Look, I've just got a question, just in relation to have we have officers or consulted formally with the MAV or the VLGA in relation to current practices regarding CEO employment committee meetings, or in relation to the roles and responsibilities of independent chairs on these committees, and also about the number of councils that have different sorts of committee structures and things like that. So have we consulted the MAV on some or all of those issues and the VLGA in a formal way?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through the Mayor, I can confirm that officers have not engaged with the MAV and LGBA. What I can confirm is that the independent chair engaged with them to seek their confirmation of advice in consultation with myself, to see if that would be appropriate and if there was any involvement required. I can also confirm in terms of what other council structures are. The structures of CEO Employment Matters Committees are quite varied across local government. It's a new requirement under the new Local Government Act 2020, but of course for Darebin that's something that has been in place for some time as a leading kind of measure. So since 2017 we've had this form of committee, so the rest of the sector is catching up with us. There are a number of other councils that do have independent chairs of their committees, such as Darebin does, but it is quite varied, so there are different structures.
Thank you. Councillor Greco, you have a supplementary
just as a supplementary question. Thanks for the response, to our officer, Ms. Jolie. I just wanted to know whether we've had any formal written advice from the MAV or anything in writing has come to us, and secondly, whether there are in the sector any examples where the independent chair has voting rights on the committee.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through the Mayor, can I please clarify? Are you referring to whether the advice was sought at the time that this was established in 2017, or it was established during the review?
The advice that we're during the review.
Thank you for the clarification. Through the review, Councillor, there was not change sought nor change requested in terms of the content of the charter. The intent of the review was simply to bring it into alignment with the composition that Council had resolved late last year, and it was on that basis that the change was put to the committee. The committee did not request further clarification or information.
Thank you. I think Councillor Greco had a supplementary question.
No, that's okay for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dimitriadis. Councillor Greco, can you turn off your microphone, please? Thank you. Councillor Dimitriadis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up with the question that Councillor Greco was asking about how many councils are there in Melbourne that allow the independent chair to have voting rights on this committee?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor Messina, I'll need to take that question on notice. I don't have those exact figures at hand.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? As there are no further questions, we'll now move that to debate. Councillors, I remind you that once we commence the debate, there'll be no further questions to the officers. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. I'd like to move the recommendation as per the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a Councillor Lawrence, are you seconding the recommendation? I note your hand was up, Councillor.
No, I've got an amendment to move.
Okay, let's tackle Councillor Rennie's motion or motion. Do we have a second to the officer's recommendation as noted by Councillor Rennie? Seconded by Councillor McCarthy. Would you like to speak? And you're foreshadowing an alternate motion, Councillor Lawrence?
No, I'm moving an amendment.
Well, first we need to go through to the initial motion that's been put through by Councillor Rennie, then we'll tackle the amendment. Would you like to put up your motion? Would you like to speak to your motion, the officer's motion? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. I feel that we're incredibly fortunate in the City of Darebin to have been several steps ahead of most other councils in Victoria, in that we established a CEO Performance Review Committee in 2017 that really met best practice for the sector and which was the envy of many other councils around the state. It was the envy partly because of our model, which has an independent chair, but also because of the calibre of independent chair we were able to attract in terms of Mary Cook's AO. And Mary has very adeptly chaired this committee for the past 4 years. And she came to us on the recommendation of Phil Shanahan, who was the interim CEO at Darebin at the beginning of 2017. I've had the great privilege to be on the committee for the last 4 years and to see Mary.
Messina, I have a point of order, if I may. The point of order is in relation to relevance, and that Councillor Rennie is talking about the person that occupies the current position as chair, and what we're discussing here tonight is about the terms of reference of the committee and not so much the individual attributes of the person occupying the position of chair.
Noted, but I actually will allow Councillor Rennie to continue with the conversation, but noted your comments. Councillor Rennie, you may continue.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was setting some background for those who might be less familiar with this committee. So I've had the very great privilege of being on the committee for the last 4 years and seeing the way in which an independent chair adds value to the process. And I would have to say that across 3 mayors now, the independent chair has added extraordinary value in her skills in facilitating a conversation and achieving consensus amongst the councillors sitting around the table. So keeping in mind the success of our model and the fact that it has been the envy of other councils, we decided as a council that it would be appropriate for all councillors to participate in this committee moving forward at our meeting at the end of last year. And as a result of that, it was necessary to update the charter. But the charter has served us very well. And so the updates and the changes that come before us tonight are actually very minimal. And they include some changes to provisions about all councillors being participants and to the quorum that results from that. There is no change to the role of the independent chair. It remains as it always has been and remains operational in a way that I think has served us so well. And on that basis, I really highly recommend the officer's recommendation that is in the agenda tonight, because I think it will continue to uphold a charter that serves our community exceptionally well. I know there's been some comment in relation to the idea that an independent chair might have a vote. In response to that, I'd say there are numerous occasions when independent people on advisory committees have a vote and a genuine say in many respects on the Audit and Risk Committee. And in fact, in many of our advisory committees, should a vote be required, all members of advisory committees are actually able to vote and participate, and that's exactly what we want. That's why we harness the strength of our community and bring it into these committees, keeping in mind that decisions are only made by the 9 of us in the council chamber. So on that basis, I commend this to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
I'll reserve my right for the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, I had issues with the time clock, so I did give an extra half a minute to Councillor Rennie. The time clock was not accurate. We did freeze it, so I'm happy to provide that time extra to Councillor Lawrence, who wants to put up his notice of his amendment to the motion. And I'm trusting it's the motion that you circulated earlier, Councillor Lawrence. Amendment that you circulated earlier.
Yes, can you see me?
I can see you, but I'm just waiting for if we can have the amendment put up on the screen, please.
I think I've lost. I can't see you guys. So
I can see you. I can see you, Councillor Lawrence. So you cannot see your amendment. Is that correct, Councillor Lawrence?
Yeah.
Okay, just one moment. I'm sure IT will be coming over to your desk.
I've lost the Zoom.
We can see you.
Yep.
Can you see your amendment, Councillor Lawrence?
Yes, that's correct. Correct.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Lawrence's amendment? Seconded by Councillor Dimitriadis. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see me now.
We can hear you when we can see you. I can confirm that, Councillor Lawrence.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just... The amendment I put forward here is an attempt to get some kind of consensus. Obviously, there's been discussions around changes to the existing charter in light that we've now got legislation which talks about this, and in light that we've actually got some reports by the local government inspectorate as well in regards to this. So while there's been some strong views to maintain the original 2017 model, there's also been other people who've been, myself included, who'd rather go for a model with an independent facilitator, or sometimes called a consultant, and we can see that sort of model next door in Moreland. That expertise in terms is needed for to help councillors do assessments and performance criteria of CEOs. So at the moment, the differences between Moreland's model and Darebin's is that they have actually two consultants, and they have the mayor chairing, and they don't have this issue of a chairperson voting. So there's three distinct characteristics. Now, understanding the strength of opinion of people to maintain the chairperson role and to not have a mayor chairing, I've suggested this amendment, which brings us closer to bringing the two sides of the council together, where we're simply changing the issue of maintaining the chairperson's role, but not having the chairperson vote, and maintaining the chairperson doing what is done in other cities by the mayor, which is chairing the meeting, and maintaining the title too. So this is sort of a compromise, and really it's about preserving the current role of an independent person on the charter, on the committee, but removing any potential conflict of roles that's created when you begin to have current voting rights in the chair. So it'll have a truly more independent role. And that independent role is really to give advice and expertise that we mightn't have and that we can listen to. And again, this is, I also note we are supplementing the chair's role with other HR advice as we go along, but I would note that Moreland have two independent people on their committee to help with giving that level of expertise. So this is a minor amendment, but at least brings us closer to a working consensus.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Dimitriadis.
I'll reserve my right to speak.
Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Hannan.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to address the amendment proposed by Councillor Lawrence, particularly the point about voting that has been focused there. I think as we've heard from other speakers, voting is consistent, although not universal, across other subcommittees in Darebin and other committees across different councils, as well as in other sectors as well, in the private sector, for example. Voting is common practice because it attracts and retains high caliber candidates for the roles. This is a very important committee. At the end of the day, it's making HR decisions about a senior public servant, and we need someone who's skilled and qualified. Voting sends a message that they are being taken seriously and they have a voice on the committee. Importantly, voting does not replace the decision-making role of councillors. We are the elected representatives, the 9 of us as councillors in Darebin. We are all in the committee, which actually increases the risk of politicising this body, which is exactly the reason why we need to have a strong chair and not weaken that role at all. We will all be in the final decision. So we, as the 9 of us as councillors, will make the ultimate decision on any matters in relation to the CEO. The role of the chair is only to guide us through that process. I recall words in a previous discussion that we've had around this: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's served us well for 4 years and there is no need to bring in this new change.
Okay. Apologies, councillors. Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Williams.
Sorry, technical issues. I think the issue that I find with the situation is that councillors have one job particularly, and that's to hire one person, and that's the CEO. And when we have a committee, which is fine, but we have a chairperson who has voting rights. Now that chairperson could change later down the track. It doesn't matter who that person may or may not be. I believe that that could influence the result of maybe councillors down the track also. I think it's important that, yes, I realise that in previous or any type of committee, the chairperson has that voting right. But I think this is a bit tricky because we are elected councillors from our community, and our community are quite involved, especially when it comes to CEO matters and issues. I think we need to keep it as neutral as possible, and by doing that, as I was saying, that we as councillors, we have control over only one person that we employ, and that's the CEO. And I find that we're getting a lot of backlash, and I'd like to make sure that we are trying to be as similar to other municipalities, even though this council is very different to other councils where I find the charter is showing that the chairperson has voting rights. So I find that it's a bit of controversy in that situation. I'd like to try and reel it back to make sure that it's kept quite neutral in that aspect.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Member Messina. Look, I'd just like to support the amendment. I'll first start from what the Act says. The Act talks about obtaining independent professional advice. And what we've done, and we did this without knowing what the Act was going to say back in 2017, I think what we've done is overreach, because what we've done is we've included the independent professional advice onto the advisory committee, which is fine by me. And I think it's a good move. Also, we've given that person the role of chairing the committee as an independent chair, and that's fine by me. But I think given that the independent chair voting rights, I think it's an overreach, and it's not reflective of the intent of the Act of which we are governed by. The other point that I would make is that since we actually had from 2017, there have been some substantial changes. We had a committee of 4, and we didn't know what the Act said, and we had a chair with voting rights. Now we have got a committee of 9, all councillors. I don't know one committee right across the local government sector where you have all councillors on that committee with an independent chair with voting rights. And I think it's a bit of an anomaly in the sector. I haven't heard, both from our officers or has never been confirmed to me, any other council that has an independent chair with voting rights on the CEO Employment Matters Committee. So there's 79 councils. I'm not aware of one. I understand, and it hasn't been confirmed to me that the Melbourne City Council has that practice. But as has been mentioned, councils within and around Darebin do not have that type of setup. So I think it'll be a real anomaly if we go down the path of giving independent rights to the chair, given the changes that have taken place. The other point I'd like to make is that the role of the independent chair, given that there are 9 councillors on the committee, the fundamental role is not so much exercising voting power, because exercising voting power actually politicises the role of the independent chair. I think the role of the independent chair ought to be about drawing consensus. And I agree with Councillor Rennie. We have a person who's able to do that currently, but I think that's what we have to instill in the role.
Councillor Greco, it's time. Thank you. Councillors, unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I need to adjourn this meeting, and we need to due to the governance law, we need to go straight to the planning committee meeting. So this meeting has now been adjourned and closed at 6:56 p.m. And please I request that the await confirmation that the IT staff at the meeting has been adjourned. And we will recommence at the end of the planning committee meeting. Can I have confirmation from the staff that the meeting has been stopped?